Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the morning brief on a Monday, June 22nd. All right, it's our masterclass on investing with military precision. Make sure if you got new names in the room, you want to switch that over to a call sign. Otherwise, we will do that for you. I put some numbers up there just so everybody can kind of keep track of what we're doing as far as the podcast. And the numbers are we have 6 squadron members now. So with that, we've got 7 episodes that have been released of the podcast, and we're up to 154 total downloads. So again, I expect that to continue to increase, which is kind of a good news story. So I'll kind of put those numbers there. I may not talk to them every day, but everybody can at least see that as far as what's going on with the podcast and then how that parlays into our room. I did reach out to the pilot network, so I hope to see a couple of new names in here. So welcome to the new folks. And we will, you guys can see what it's all about. And hopefully if you want to join us, that would be great. All right. Mission objectives today, we're going to grow our money, protect our money, and live off our money. As far as the specific topics out there that we're going to talk about this morning is going to be Chinese stocks. Now, we talk about these on kind of a regular basis. And with that, there's a few names. You can see them down below: Alibaba, Tencent, IQ, YY, NEO, and LK being one of the favorites that we talk about out there. But basically, if you are investing in Chinese stocks, then what you're looking at doing is they're speculative, right? So you're not really going to ever go into this as this is a safe name or a retirement name or something I can actually live off of on a big dividend. You're not going to get any of that. You're going to get growth or losses, right? So it's speculative. So as you set up these positions in your portfolio, you want to make sure that you only have a position size that is manageable, if you will. So if it does go south, or if Trump comes in and makes some draconian measure versus the Chinese stocks, or they get delisted, any of that stuff is something that you want to make sure that and you have your portfolio positioned accordingly. Okay, as far as our topic of the day will be American depository receipts. So I thought it was depository as well. I found out this morning it's actually depository, so we'll make that correction real quick. We're going to talk about how all that works. How can the U.S. stock market and U.S. investors like yourself come in and invest in these companies that are actually foreign companies? So it's a very simple process, but you should know a little bit of kind of inside investing this morning as far as how that actually works. Okay, for our flow today, we're going to go long, short, open, short, long. What does that mean for the new names in the room is that we're going to talk about the market review, year in review, and from there we're going to look at the headlines of the day, and then we're going to talk about the long-term investments, the 6 I have there, and then a few more that I have my eye on out there that I invest in. And then we're going to talk about some short-term day trading opportunities. We will have our day trading challenge, which again, if you remember when I set this up, the day trading challenge is in the months of May and June. And once we get there, as far as the numbers in the squadron, get north of 10 members up to 15 or so, we won't need to do the challenge anymore when we get actually into real world entries. So that is something to expect out there. From there, we'll go right around the open. We'll talk about some day trading stuff, what's in motion, then we'll come back to the overall market and take a look at some long names there and how the market's being affected on a Monday and kind of setting up for the week. And from there, we'll transition to the academic topic where we'll go over to Investopedia, and I'll kind of give you a behind the scenes look at the ADR process. For contingencies, it looks like we're working some this morning, so thank you. Again, reaching out to Steve at ototnow.com is going to get you some immediate help from tech support here. So thanks for folks for having issues there. And of course, the disclaimer there, this is an educational presentation. And if you have you can see the disclaimer there, and the full disclaimer is available on otot.now. Okay, let's go over to the big market in review at TD Ameritrade, and you should be seeing the 1 year in review from left to right. Obviously, the big run up into February, followed by the sell-off in March and March 23rd low, and then the bounce from there. The exact number on the bounce, it was up to 50%. If you look at a few days ago, up in this range here. Again, that was almost a 50% retracement from the low, and got us, almost back to new highs. From there, we're kind of struggling in this channel. The key level to be held right here, the one that everybody's talking about over the weekend, which especially when technical folks like to talk a lot, is this 300 level, or 3,000 if you're looking at the actual SPY on TV. So we'll see. Today, the futures are in the green. It's setting up nice. The Trump rally went down without a hitch, if you will, other than hardly anybody showed up, right? But we'll talk about that when we get to the headlines. But yeah, we had the down day on Friday. Again, that was largely due to, we'll zoom in here a little bit on last week. So here's your SPY is what we're looking at for the new folks in the group. This was your Friday. And Friday, kind of the futures were up, and then somewhere in here, Apple announced that they were going to close some stores in some of the states that had shown a retracement in the coronavirus. So with that, obviously we went pretty much negative throughout the day and on into the weekend. I do think there was some of the profit taking or setting up some de-risking going into the weekend because of the big Trump rally, not because of the Trump rally, but more because of the protest and the potential for some violence in Tulsa, which would have really set the nation back. That did not happen. So I think what we're seeing is a little bit of a bounce there based off of that. Okay, let's go to the calendar real quick. As far as earnings, Monday morning's not a big earnings release time. So what we've got there is I put IVR, that's Invesco mortgage. Again, the mortgages have been a good benefactor of the coronavirus and work from home. We were worried about housing initially. That has not played out. So everything's pretty healthy in the housing/mortgage world. Okay, let's go to CNBC. We're going to go around the world for our headline review. As you can see, the markets are in the green. Not quite as green as they were earlier today, but holding pretty steady in the green. So that's kind of a nice setup for a good news Monday. I did say last week that if we had violence at the Trump rally, that it was going to take the market down. We may even be limit down. That did not happen. So let's talk about the Trump rally real quick. Obviously, there was a lot of hype. There's not actually a headline in here, which I'm kind of surprised about. Maybe it's because it's the mainstream media. But again, only like half of the stadium was full of the 18,000 people person stadium. They also had another venue next door for all the overflow of people. They said 1 million were coming. Less, 9,000 or so showed up. Probably, I don't know the head count on the protesters, but there's probably quite a few there. But it kind of turned out to be a non-event across the board. So in a way, that's good news, stabilizing for the market. We'll see how that plays out for the election. All right, I'm going to take us around the world real quick. Let's talk about the EU is in the red. You're going to notice a steady theme. Again, I think this is a carryover from Friday. And the U.S. markets tend to drive a lot of things. So if we're in the green today, expect that to carry over to green in the other markets. Pretty much red across Asia, or very slightly in the green. These were our Friday numbers. Again, pretty decent move down, almost 1% there in the Dow. NASDAQ did finish in the green. Tech's kind of been a leader in this market. And I will say it's been a leader for the past decade, which is why we're heavily invested in tech, which comes with its own risk. So manage your position size accordingly, but just realize that tech has been a leader. It's kind of been the place to be for a long time. If we take a look at the VIX is actually below that 40 level again. So even though we had a negative day and even though we had a down day on Friday, the VIX actually decreased, which is kind of funny because usually volatility increases. Friday was also the quadruple witching of the options and futures. We don't talk a lot about that here, but realize that is one of the best ways to hedge is get in with covered calls and some other options from there. So let's see what we have in the bond world. Slight leak across the board in the bond world for interest rates. Oil, we were above 40 and then we kind of dipped back below 40, but still pretty healthy in the long term. When I think of the oil companies, the only one that seems to be kind of in trouble is BP, but they are taking draconian measures to save their dividend, which is now over 10%. I am looking at whether or not to go into BP again. I used to have it years ago. Kind of got out of the oil space completely when we took the big dip. I'm long ExxonMobil, have no problem going into ExxonMobil here. BP, I don't know. If I think their dividend's safe, I'm going to have to start loading up on it. I really am. All right, Nat Gas is another name that I said was facing a 40 or 50-year low as of last week. So bought some of the UGAS, which is one of the triple levered exchange traded notes. Again, those are speculative. If it shows up in your portfolio, it's not going to be there very long. So I may have to look at the exit. I think UGAS was up around 11. I may hold out for 12 and then probably get rid of it. As you can see, when markets are all red, you get to the precious metals are in green. Again, we talked about glitter. GLTR is the ETF if you want to play all of them, which I generally don't. But when you look at these numbers, and if you're a contrarian or you're worried about risk or you want to take risk out of your portfolio, putting precious metals into your portfolio going into the election would be one way to do that. Not necessarily my preferred way, but I will tell you it is a preferred way for a lot of major investors out there. And your home gamers, I think, like to load up on precious metals. So just realize people will be buying that. So if everybody's buying it, that might be something to take the ride on. Okay, how about your morbid picture of the day? It's like, hey, let's wake up at 6 in the morning and look at what is this? Mass graves and 2 people burying a coffin. Not exactly what I wanted to see on a green. I like the green up top, and then I didn't really like the death picture here. But this is kind of funny. You know, coronavirus cases have surged around the world, and that's true. Markets don't seem worried. It's not a one-for-one on how many people die due to a virus and whether that affects the economy. Obviously, that's a negative headline news, but it's certainly not one-for-one sort of thing. Okay, 30,000 coronavirus cases 2 days straight. So we're kind of in the middle of that second wave. So I would expect to see more of that going into the headlines, if you will. So we'll see how that affects the markets. I don't know that it's really going to move the needle at all. Big news out of Alabama this weekend. Viruses do spike, but also Talladega was this weekend, the major NASCAR race, and Bubba Wallace, not Bubba Watson, he's a golfer. Bubba Wallace, the only black NASCAR driver at the higher levels, found a noose in his area there in his garage. Obviously, there's no fans allowed in that area, so it's obviously somebody inside NASCAR that wears credentials. So again, not good. Expect more to follow out of that. I know that there's cameras all over those places, so I can't even imagine that wasn't observed by somebody, but we shall see. Let's see what else we have. Some worries about the dollar. That's going to be, as we spend more and more, that's going to be a common theme. People are going to worry about the dollar, and rightfully so. I am not yet worried about the dollar. Okay, Apple and Microsoft are up today, kind of taking the markets higher. Predator sent me an article. I didn't read it, but I kind of know what it says about how there's a few names dominating the market, and it's actually making the moves that are out there. So that's true. Generally, you want broad leadership across the market, and when I say broad leadership, that's when it was good when the Dow's moving up, because the Dow, even though it's only 30 names, it's across all sectors. So the NASDAQ can kind of outpace the market sometimes and carry everything higher. Okay. Have not seen that name before for a VP pick. Those have to be getting close to coming out soon, which will be interesting. All right. Okay, Apple obviously has been upgraded, market leader kind of thing. This article talks about Facebook and how Facebook's position, when you've heard me say this before, Facebook is positioned to outperform due to ad dollars coming in. When you think of advertising coming out of the coronavirus, a lot of companies pivot, restructure, or refocus their ad budgets and come out of there strong. And again, Facebook and Google are the ways to play that. Okay, Virgin Galactic got a good headline this morning. They're training some NASA astronauts, so you could see a move up there. And Sherwin-Williams is another, we'll have to see what the ticker is on Sherwin-Williams, but that's another name that has got a lot of movement in it lately and some upgrades based on that work from home environment. Why? I do remember my kids coming in right after they couldn't go to school, and both of them have repainted their rooms. So one data point, but you take that across everybody, you're stuck at home, you do all the home projects that you've kind of been working on. So with that, Sherwin-Williams is SHW. So I'm going to put that in as a long name. We'll take a look at that once we get to the day trading stuff. Okay. let's take a look. Oh, I have a niece works at Sherwin. Yeah, right. All right, let's move over to Schwab and take a look at the Chinese stocks that I have for us today. First one in the upper left is Alibaba. That's the one that I am a full all in. Again, watch your position size here, but the market is not really for a huge name. There's been so much headline risk with Trump slapping on some, delisting of Chinese names. I think this thing is held back for what its actual value is. It's the Chinese Amazon. That's rough when I say it's a Chinese version of something. That's a rough comparison. Don't take that to the bank and try to cash it in. But compared to what Amazon's done in the U.S. market, yeah, Alibaba is even bigger. They have Singles Day coming up in November. There's just a lot of, I would say, pent up upside in Baba. So I'm very happy to be in that name, even though I haven't paid off a whole lot yet. You look over to Tencent Holdings. Again, that's a conglomerate. They own a lot of different things, but you think of gaming. They're the ones that were behind Fortnite. They also funded some new games that just got released out there as well. So a steady march up. Again, all these names would be higher if there wasn't concern about Trump delisting them. IQ is a Chinese Netflix that was kind of left behind, as you can see from the chart. Got a major upgrade. What was that, 5 days ago? I saw a nice pop in the stock that kind of adds a floor in. So if we're thinking about going into that name, I've been in it. It was up at $50, and that's one of those where it doubled. We took half off and then watched it crater. So that's why you're happy when something doubles to take half off, right? Because you're basically house money at that point. So even if it craters, you can cry it out and move on. Because you're still up. The next one is YY. We don't talk about Joy a whole lot. It's roughly a Chinese Google, roughly. It's also a major internet provider, so there's a lot of it in the internet space. But yeah, look at that move. I wouldn't touch it here, but certainly if you got a retracement in Chinese names, that'd be one to pick up because it's showing best of breed. Lower left is NIO. That's an EV car maker. Again, China has a ton of these. However, NIO, if you look at that, it was down close to $1 back in October, kind of rode up to that $4 level, and then it cratered back down to near 2 at the March 23rd lows. It has been a name that I've been in and gotten out of. So currently I have just a sliver of it. And it's paid off, but with this, it's been straight up all the way to 734. I couldn't even say buy it here. There's no way. Way too much risk in this name, I think. I do, if you ever want to see the coolest cars you've ever seen, NIO.com. Yeah, awesome. They do have some amazing prototypes there. Nikola is another name. That's the U.S. name. Nikola, excuse me. They got a downgrade today, so we'll take a look at that short. And LK is short for Luckin, which is the Chinese coffee company, also known as my personal house of pain. You know I'm long this name, not at the $40 level, but I did get back in when it was around $5 on the bump up there after March. So I think it's consolidating here. A lot of in the news here for LK. Go ahead and pull up, we'll switch to FinViz real quick and leave this chart behind and pull up LK just so you can see what the chart is and some of the headlines associated with it. But LK basically over the weekend, so they had the big fraud case, which is what took it down from 25 down into the below 10 house of pain. They were lying. This is resilience. Never give up. Sorry about that. They didn't kill. They fired their CEO, COO, their chairman of the board. They just replaced 2 board seats, and the 2 new folks, one of them is a lawyer, the other is a university professor. And then, so all that happened last week. I think the 2 new board seats were on Friday. And then you take it into this weekend, and assets were frozen for a while going into the fraud investigation. So the major shareholders, the institutionals, could not sell the stock. Well, so they've had to sit there and hold this whole time. Well, they were released yesterday, they being some major banks out there, both Chinese and American banks, that loaded up on this stock to the tune of several $1 million worth of stock. And now they can sell. So it could be an interesting day in the market for LK. I still think it's a buy here. It'll probably open down. It's sitting at 363 right now. On another chart, it dropped down to 335 this morning. If that gets below $3, I think it's time to take a small truck and back it up and put a bunch of LK shares in it. If it doesn't, then it's just kind of time to sit back and take a look. But we'll keep an eye on that. Okay, let's move over to back to Schwab. We'll go to the tabs and start looking for some day trading names. Again, Mondays are tough because you don't have a lot of the earnings or really very little earnings news. But let's go to the, that tab, and let's put in Sherwin-Williams since we're talking about SHW. Okay, it is gapping up, looking for the exact number. Well, I'm sure we'll see it. It's saying 0.9 down in the news below. If you can see that, but it closed at 584. Its bid ask is wide open. It's a $50 bid ask, so it really doesn't trade a whole lot. So we're gonna have to wait for that one to open. You would not take that at the open, no matter what. You got to let the volume cook in from 220 up to 100,000, which it probably will. But yeah, you want to not touch this one right away and see what kind of setup you get. But that would be a long look that I would be interested in there. We talked about NKLA. Let's put that in. This would be a short story based off the headline. JP Morgan. It's not popping up in the news screen there like it normally does, but JP Morgan did downgrade it. They said their shares are worth about a third less. Remember, they've made the same number of cars that I've personally made, which is 0. So not necessary, but they talk a good game. Holy cow, their CEO will not shut up. 30 years old, and he's like a hype machine. If he lives up to any of that, it'll be very profitable, but most people don't think he will. So anyhow, we'll take a look at that on short. Where are we? 65. It's opening a little bit lower, not necessarily a lot lower. So we'll keep an eye on that. DKNG, you know, you hear me talk about DraftKings, or some people call it Donkey Kong because it is gone up like 250% since my entry. I still have a ton of this, even though I've taken profits on it all the way up. I probably have too much, so I got to unload some of this today. I really do. But it is gapping up based off the headline just slightly from 42 up to 43. So we'll keep an eye on that. That would be a long story. Some other stuff showing up in the chat. So let's take a look at TSN long. See Taiwan Semiconductor, maybe. No, Tyson Foods. Okay, that is the chicken story. You're looking at that short. I'm sorry. Yeah, short. The news there, obviously, China said they are, if I remember the headline, they're blocking or not accepting Tyson chicken anymore due to concerns. So obviously they could have a big move down. Sitting at 63, opening down at 61, 23,000. Volume a little bit light, but I love the thesis here. So that will probably be certainly my fave of anything we looked at so far. So thanks, Predator, for throwing that out. UAL. The airlines are issuing just a crap ton of debt, which this is kind of interesting because remember Hertz last week tried to issue a bunch of stock, issue a bunch of debt. It's like SEC came in and said no. Both United and I want to say American are issuing I mean, we're talking big numbers of debt. Not good. So I don't know. We shall see. They're at 36 down to 35. I do think they would continue to sell off. You're looking at what, a 10, 12-day chart there. Maybe more, 15 maybe. So yeah, I mean, they've ridden up a lot, and I think you're again, Robinhood. This was one of the big names that the home gamers, if you will, are in, and I think they're probably starting to get scared. So I think UAL short is an interesting thesis. We'll put AAL. We don't need to look at the chart, but that would also be there too. Okay, let's take a look at space long. That's probably Virgin Galactic. It is. Yeah, I agree. That's 15 up to 17.5. Yeah, I think that's a good news story. But as far as dollars in pockets, I don't buy it either there. So I think might be risky. You're saying short, maybe a fill the gap type scenario. We don't really do that, but we'll watch it, right? I would say it's a long per hour philosophy, but I'll put short in parentheses. I don't think anybody's going to touch that as far as a trade. All right, let's look at what's going on. American, we did talk about they're gapping down. We've got NEO on the move up because it just moves up every day. It's crazy. Okay, that's 17% gap up in space. We already talked about that. Tortoise Acquisition Corp. Let's pull that up. I'm not familiar with that name, so SHLL, and see what's going on there. Obviously, that's a huge move. Goodness. So 2 days ago, it went from 10 up to 17, closed at 13.15. Geez, what a move. So 14, see what you can find out on Shell. We're looking at it at FinViz. and scroll down to the headlines. See what I can pull out of this. Oh man, this is a brand new company, I guess. This looks like one of those closet IPOs kind of thing. It's in the industrial space. I don't know enough about it to be able to. It's certainly an interesting name. So we'll just tortoise shell. I get it. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what that's got. I'm going to put shell long. I don't expect anybody to touch it, but we'll certainly take a look at it on the chart. All right, 5 minutes to go. There's a United dipping down, not as much as American. Carnival's following that. Those all tend to follow, so you pretty much stab at any of those names. Let's go to the next tab. Trade Desk, not enough volume. Trade Desk is an amazing name. That's just crazy what they do. I'm not going to go into it there. Teladoc moving up. Nothing really qualifies in volume, so let's go to the decliners. Again, the market's up, so careful taking something short, right? But if the market does turn and start down, on another screen, I'm going to look at the market update real quick while we talk about these names, see what the market's doing. Still holding in the green. Yeah, pretty, not too bad. Urban One, that's one that's moved up. Let's click on that real quick. Again, I don't know what they do, but they certainly have been in play. They went up, it's up at 36, kind of gapping down. It sold off like, I mean, look at that move. In a week and a half, it's moved from $2 to 52 down to 36. If you were going to sit and day trade all day, this would be a name to watch. So I would say this is a short here situation. I'm not going to touch it, but it's something you can certainly look at if you're interested. Okay, I see Predator's got his trade in there. UAL short. Yeah, I could see Urban One being a day trader's dream. All right, let's move to the next one. All right, three things up over 10%, not necessarily touching those. We like the 5 to 10%, which is pretty much the rest of the page. Looking for volume. There's NEO on an ADR. Let's just look at the screen here, NEO. You see where it says dash ADR. That's what we're going to talk about a little bit later. We're not actually holding the shares. We're holding fractions of the shares a bank has that actually has the shares. Kind of weird, but we'll talk about it later. All right, ADTs gapping up, so home security. That's that could be a play. That's more of a long-term investment. I wouldn't expect it to move significantly there. Low volume though, so we aren't going to touch it. Gap retail's making a little bit of a recovery. I'm not touching Gap stores on anything going long. And let's take a look at the last tab. Got 2 minutes to go. I'll need to get my trade in here. Don't see anything jumping out. So let's switch over to TD Ameritrade. We'll get that set up. We'll get UAL left. We'll go SPY right, and then my trade. Will be Tyson shorts. We'll put TSN in the middle. I like that play. Let me think about my stop here. All right, 2 minutes to go, so I got plenty of time. So if this opens, when I'm looking at the chart, open a $60 stock. So when I think if it's going to open there somewhere between 61 and 61.50, I kind of want to clear the 62 hurdle. So a 50-cent stop is what I'm going to put in right now for my actual trade. So that would have to move to get that 3R. I'd have to move $1.50 to the downside. That is a real possibility. So let me hit my. Let's go TSN. We're going short. I'm going a 50-cent stop. And I will enter at minute 2 and out at 20. I want to let this thing cook for a while. See, cooking chicken. See what I did there? All right, then hit enter. So that is officially in the chat. Yep, it looks like we're only going to have the 2 trades there for this morning. We'll get the bell back on so you can hear that, and we will be off to the races. As far as the SPY, you can see it's got the SPY on the right, so you can see how the market's doing there overall. So kind of flopping around. So we'll see how it works out for the day. And we'll take a look at some other names as we get into the open here. So short TSN and UAL, 20 cent. We're both in at the 2-minute point, so we get to watch for a little while. We'll talk about, there's the bell. We'll talk about the actual trade entries that you would take in the real world. Good news move up out of Tyson. I think that's probably short covering, so I really like that. I would love to enter the trade up there. So if I'm watching real time, I like that move. Again, UAL, you're loving that move up. So again, let it move up, right? And that way you can get a better entry for the short. Yeah, $0.50 move up there on both of the names that we're kind of interested in. Interesting move out of the SPY there. It went green in the first minute. Now it's kind of selling off. So again, not a huge move there. But if you look at the upper right, the SPY is actually in the red. Is that true? Going to refresh on another screen here to take a look at this. Refresh it again. I'm not getting, I'm looking at CNBC. It looks like we have some dated information. It's still showing the futures there. So we'll take a look. All right. So as far as entries at UAL, if you're taking this real time, you might even consider if it chills out in that 35.80 to 36 range, especially if you close out here. I think that's a good entry. So hopefully it doesn't stripe down red until that second minute, which would be a just fabulous entry if we can get it. Same thing with Tyson. If I can get it above 61.80, if it holds that, then I would take the trade. If it breaks down below 61, yeah, I would take it here in the real world. We don't have to draw that up. But yeah, 61.80 is where I would enter that, and then use a 40-cent stop up to 62.20 basically for protection. So that would be my real world entry. I would already be in Tyson. For today's purposes, obviously, I don't get it until the next minute clicks. So we'll draw on UAL first. That's going to be just a great entry. There's the entry point. So we'll take a look at it. So yeah, perfect. 35.83. That's going to be a 3R trade, I bet, as things fall in. So we've got that. We'll go over and draw on the Tyson chart. 61.90 was my entry. I love that entry for this stock. So again, that puts my stop up at 61.90, so 62.40. So I'm like, that's the top of the chart, but we'll draw it up there in 62.38 range or so, wherever you can get it. Oh, nice. So yeah, I'm very comfortable with that trade and really like the long-term thesis. You see the SPY striping down, so that's kind of nice. That will help our shorts. So let's calculate a 3R move for UAL. Entered at what, 35.83. Let's subtract 60 cents, so 35.23. Look at that. You would have 3Rs right at the place of basically where it opened. So that is a fantastic trade. I would say real world, if it hits 35.23 and you get your 3R, I would sell basically 2/3 of your total position. So lock your profit in that, and then let the last 1/3 of your shares ride. So pretty pleased with those two trades there. All right, let's on our right screen. So we'll let those cook for a while. Let's see, the Predators out of 10, I'm out of 20, so we've got lots of time. Let's look at Urban One, because that's kind of fun. Again, don't necessarily know what these guys do. And again, it was a short play. So it opened at 31. There's no way you would take that out of the gate. You might have taken the 2-minute entry, but look at the move in that, everybody. So 30, 20, down to 26. That's a $3 plus move. Your stop on that is going to be probably $1. If you got it at 30, you would want it to close. You'd want to give yourself protection up to above 31.25 or so. So, I mean, that's almost a 3R move inside of 1 minute, and it doesn't look like it's done. I would not hold Urban One. This is not one of these, like I said, Tyson or UAL, where I would hold some shares and let them just fall throughout the first half hour. I'd already be back out of this trade in Urban One. I would not be greedy. I would take the 3 plus 4, 5R that this thing's generating, and log out and go to the gym. I mean, that's a great move. Day trader's dream. So we'll check back on that though. That's kind of funny. Shell was our tortoise group, SHLL. So let's take a look at that. Again, I wrote this down as a short, so it's definitely a fill the gap kind of thing. It had run up, from basically 0 up to 20, so it's on its way back up. If you're going to take a delayed entry in this, that's setting up kind of nice. If it stalled there between 17.10 and 17.30 with a short thesis, now that it's got the volume in, you could, let's zoom out a little bit on it just so you can kind of see the the track record. See, so it was up up at 21 there. So this could be a lot of short covering. Again, tough name if you're going to get in and try to trade this. This is almost a dart throw, so I would avoid. So we won't look at that again. All right, let's take a look at NKLA short. Our two trades on the left, both are working just fine. I wouldn't have any concerns at all. Okay, so NKLA got that. Hey, you're going to lose a third of your value, and people look like they're snapping it up this morning. We're at the 5-minute point, so that, again, that's where a lot of times you will see the rise up. So we'll check back on this name. Again, any congestion between 64.70 and 67.80, and you know, that would be a good entry point for a short. I wouldn't be too greedy on it, but basically, if you put a 20-cent stop up there, that would take you up to 65 or so. So yeah, I mean that's not a bad entry if you get congestion there. So that's Nikola. Let's take a look at DraftKings DKNG. All right, I had just written down as a long. So you got the move up there initially, and then that big strike down. Oh, that'd be a gutsy move to take it. If you took it long here, you'd have to put a stop all the way down to 42.30. So that's like a 50-cent stop. If you were going to even take this, it would have to move up to, you know, $1.50, 44-ish to get your 3 R's. I wouldn't touch it. I'd give up on it. As far as the trade, Sherman-Williams, SHW. Let's take a look. All right, again, volume was an issue with Sherman-Williams. Let's zoom out a little bit here, just to kind of take a look at where we've been. And again, this is a long name, so this might be just profit taking. So I didn't realize a $600 stock. So that obviously, if you're day trading a $600 stock, you're not going to have the kabillion shares like you would have when you're down in the penny range there. Yeah. Paint, how much are you going to get out of it? I don't know. So you'd be happy if you're in it long, but as far as a day trade, let's kill that off. Let's look at AAL. Got some action in United there. It looks like maybe we're getting close to busting out of that trade. That's unfortunate. I didn't really see that happening with the airlines. So 20 cents, 25.83, 26.03. So UAL's busted on that. So bad news there, because I was pretty optimistic about that trade. AAL, kind of a different path there a little bit. Well, not really. Had the big move up, sell off, and then got the there. It depends on where you took that. I think you'd still be in the AAL trade at the 2-minute entry point. Yeah, I mean, you definitely would be. Don't know what's going on with United. Maybe there's a headline out there or something. I don't see why it would have that big bump up. And Tyson's doing just fine so far. We are in the green there. Okay. Space is another name that we looked at long and then maybe short, right? This is the training of the astronauts. So 17.7. Basically, the market's not buying it. That's an 80-cent move down there. That would have been tough. I don't think there's any way you could have taken that out of the gate. I mean, it's a complete dart throw out of the gate. And then when you see it sell off like that, I don't think you can touch it. I don't think there's enough long momentum to get into the name here. I mean, the chart's pretty for a long because it dropped over $1 right there. So, but I wouldn't touch it as far as a long play. So that is kind of what we talked about. Let's look at Urban One again, just to see what's going on, because that appears to be interesting. So yeah, what a move down. $4. Yeah, happy with that one and go to the gym. Okay, so our remaining trade there is Tyson. It's doing okay. It's still barely in the green. Let's put the SPY into the right, see what's going on in the overall market out there. Okay, so the market's coming in. So that's showing 0.5% in the red at the top. I kind of don't get that. That's not what CNBC is showing. And CNBC is not updating to real time yet, so we'll continue to work on that. If you were to take a delayed entry in UAL or trade it again, that's a pretty good entry up there at 36.30. I wouldn't do that, but you can keep an eye on it. Let's take a look at let's look at the long-term investments. We'll bring those up, see what's in the green. First of all, for today, All right, some DraftKings calls are up. You got Neo up 4.5. Newmont Mining, Shopify is a name that has just been on fire with the new work from home economy. UGAS is our natural gas investment. So if you see that name in your portfolio, you can clap and high five this morning. That's a good news story. MongoDB is a tech firm. Trade Desk is tech. PayPal. Again, if you're in the payment processor names, PayPal and Square are your names to be in, not Visa and MasterCard. Netflix up. Clovis is a pharmaceutical company. You got Apple a little bit in the green. LCNB doing well this morning. ESPO is the esports index we talked about actually on Friday. All right, so some names barely in the green there, and I don't like that when I see the left side, all those zeros at the bottom. That means there's a lot of names in the red. So let's go ahead and click over to the red side, see what's down today. We're 10 minutes into the market. Again, this chart's telling me that the SPY's in the red. Let's give CNBC another shot here. See what we can have. Let's kill it, reopen it, and see if we can get some updated data there. Okay, in the red, oh yeah, let's look at some options there. We've got a psychedelic name in BOSQF, and then we've got our fave Luckin Coffee over there, which we'll take a look at because we're in the house of pain. So I said 330 is where I'm looking at buying some today. So once I'm off the mic, I will take a look and see where LK is. Again, it's a $3 stock. So when I say back up the truck, I don't mean 100,000 shares. You don't need $1/3 million portfolio in this thing, but I would have no problem picking up 1,000 shares in most anybody's portfolio that has a 6-figure portfolio, or even maybe 10,000 shares if you are in up a 30,000, if you're in $1 million portfolio. So it's a name you can see. Again, the long-term thesis there is that they still have 7,000 storefronts. They have a highly addictive, high-margin product. So just consider. All right, more psychedelic names selling off. ARCC is Ares Capital. We got Doc, which is a healthcare REIT run by doctors. Blackstone's in the red. I don't like that. BXMT is their finance arm. Got GE in the red. Bank, a bunch of names in the red there. So CNBC appears to not be online this morning, so we're not getting real-time updates there. All right, we'll be keeping an eye on that though. All right, let's go back in the green on the left-hand screen. Check that one last time. MMEDF, that's a psychedelic name. So you have a couple of them down, one of them up. Generally, that's a money flow issue. Maybe MMEDF got a good news story to where they move up and the others sell off. I don't know. Psychedelic space, I'm not touched personally, but I know those that are interested in that particular thesis will. And again, the thesis had a good, met with a friend this weekend, a good conversation about if you do believe in psychedelics. Now we're talking, I think, illegal, first of all. And secondly, I'm thinking, LSD, 60s, ruin lives, don't do drugs, that sort of thing. There is a thought out there and a strong push that for things like PTSD and pain treatment. So basically think of the marijuana theme and the legalization across the United States. We're up to, 17, 19 states. California has a big vote on coming up. So it's when you think about the theme of the legalization of marijuana and the taxation of it, again, states may not like it, but they might legalize it just so they can tax the crap out of it and make some money. Okay. Obviously your psychedelics are kind of like a higher level danger of that. But I do expect to see some medicinal uses possibly get legalized. It's obviously legal in South America, to where a lot of this is coming from, and there's being studies that are done to see if there's any legitimate uses of it. So that's kind of a story we shall see. If you want in on something like that, you buy literally a fraction. So $1 million portfolio, you might buy $5,000 of it, and of that thesis in whatever name you want, and then just basically hold it. And if it goes to zero, you go, well, that was fun. And take your losses and move on and cry it out. Okay, back to the big board. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with United, but it's certainly not working there. Tyson appears to be working fine, so I'm up an R basically off of that last move. So we'll just kind of let that continue to sell off. All right. Taking a look at the question we have there, Predator's in with a question. Thank you for that. Is there a good site that shows schedule for earnings for major stocks rather than looking them up? I tell you what, I'm going to defer that question for a second. I don't know. I tend to look them up individually, but what we're going to see is, let's go over to the ADR. I'm going to talk ADRs on the, we're going to bring up the Investopedia. I will talk ADRs, and I'll have our tech look up on another screen to see if you can find a site for that. I don't have a good one offhand. I tend to look them up individually, but we'll see what we can come up with while we're sitting here. Okay. The topic of ADRs is American Depositary Receipts. So again, now I've been saying that wrong for years, so learned something myself this morning. So first of all, what is it? So when you want to, when foreign companies are out there and they want access to American capital. So again, it's not like they're doing us a favor because they're just good people and they want to help Americans make money. No, they have a company, they have their own foreign market. And as they get investors in their foreign market, they want to say, hey, those crazy Americans want to invest, right? Because we're really good at that, which is what kind of makes us great, is we hop in with our own money and back things that are good and bail on stuff that's bad. That's why the markets always continue to grow up. Companies grow, grow, grow. You kill the bad ones off, so it's natural selection at its best, except there's dollar signs behind it. So they want access to the American market and the American dollar and the American investor. So that's why. Now, for folks like us, we, as an investor, you kind of tend to stay at home first, stay with names you know, but then as you broaden out, you are also looking for, okay, what are some opportunities, maybe smaller companies or newer companies or foreign companies that you can make that money. And we're talking long-term investing. So we're not thinking in our units now. We're thinking of what can I buy that's got the upside from there. So that's what I'm thinking about with, ADR investing. Let's see. A feasible liquid way for U.S. investors, an ADR. You've bought and sold ADRs probably and not even known it. So that's kind of the way that works out. It's really transparent to you when you buy it. If you hop on and buy BABA, it's not like you're going to see. It might say dash ADR, like I showed you earlier, NEO dash ADR. So we'll see there. All right, attract American capital. How do they work? Scroll down here. And so underlying security. So here's what happens is a bank, we'll just say a bank, that goes out and buys a whole bunch of these shares. So the bank holds it. So the shares that you're getting is actually held by a bank, and you're getting a note, a receipt, if you will, saying you have a right to those shares. Again, all transparent to you, but it's really, that's how the process is done. When you talk about exchange traded funds and exchange traded notes, you're thinking of a similar philosophy. And exchange traded funds actually going out and acquiring those things, where an exchange traded note actually is owned by somebody else and you're getting shares. So there's some accounting behind the scenes that you will see that has taken place, again, transparent to you. So key takeaways, those are always the best way to look at it. Certificate issued by a U.S. bank, trades openly, dividends, everything's paid out in U.S. dollars. You don't have to worry about any of the currency risk. You do have to worry about currency risk in a foreign company always, but as far as you and your Robinhood account or Schwab account or whatever, you don't have to worry about that. Okay, there's different levels. There's a sponsored and unsponsored. So again, you don't really need to care so much about that other than know that that does actually exist. And then the different levels out there, depends on the particular workings of that foreign company and the behind the scenes stuff. So again, not necessarily anything you need to worry about. What you will see though is at the bottom, you see that receipt pricing and costs. If you deal in these names, now that we have free trading at our custodians, or most of the major ones, what you will see is an ADR fee. And it's generally pennies. You can hold, a couple thousand shares of BP or something. So what's that, $50,000 worth. You're going to see a fee show up like 50 cents. So there is a cost associated with holding it. And then when you get your 1099B, what you will see is when you go to do your taxes, and not to nerd out on taxes, but hey, right? Good times. as you will go and actually see on your 20-page consolidated brokerage statement, is that you actually can, those fees are deducted out of your profits. So again, you're not deducted out of your taxes. So you're not having to pay that straight money. You're actually able to subtract it out of there. Okay, that is enough on ADRs. Let's look at our answer there. Thank you, Jay, for the information you put in there. Business Insider earnings calendar. Let's see, can you bring that up? He's going to bring that up on the main screen here shortly. So again, there's always a way in investing, right? Somebody's got a site somewhere that brings this up. So thanks for looking that up. And we will see what this kind of holds. So 622, that's today. So we'll scroll up down to the 620. Oh, actually it's tabbed across the top. So let's look at tomorrow. I just click on that real quick. So this is where if you're a long-term earner, long-term investor, generally those things happen and they aren't big events for you, right? Because if you're in Apple, you aren't going to sell your Apple based off a dividend, right? Or buy more, you're just gonna kind of hold it. But if you're in a trading situation and you've already say you took your urban one this morning and within 60 seconds you hit 3, 4, or 5R and your R unit is $300, so you're up $1,000. Slap high fives, go to the gym. Then when you come back for the rest of the day, you can look and go, hey, what earnings are out tomorrow, and see if you recognize any of those names. I don't yet, so let's scroll up here to a name that so you can go over to, or you can check Wednesday. You would have to, there's Accenture, so Nike, there's some major names on, and Kroger. Kroger's been in play lately with the good news story. So those are how you can surf for earnings. So thanks for bringing that up. Okay, we can clear that question out. Let's look through the chat. Everybody's pretty quiet this morning. Feel free for jovial banter in the chat. Lots of laugh. It is trouble when you're trying to find a legitimate use. Yeah, I agree. I don't buy the thesis yet. I think it's interesting. I think you're going to see more of it. If you watch, it was somewhat legitimized by mainstream media in the fact that Billions, which is the show on Showtime, I think, and if you watch that, they spent about 4 to 5 minutes on it, where they went, the leadership went off on one of these retreats. They had a shaman or a chief, and off into psychedelic drugs that help you have out of body experiences, blah blah blah. So if you see it start showing up more in Hollywood, then you might see more of that. Okay, as far as the we're going to go back up to the TD Ameritrade screen and take a look at our trades. We'll close out the Tyson trade. Actually, we're already up there. Thank you. So let's see. That is about a little over 1R, 61.90 down to looks like we're 39. So yeah, we'll call that 1R in Tyson. Yeah, the trade's dead as far as our competition, but that's one. Yeah, I would maybe. I'd hold that all day. I don't think we're going to see a particularly, any reason to buy that stock if China's given it the hand. As far as the overall market, you look on the right, did sell off there initially, climbing back up. I'm going to just refresh CNBC here and see if they're actually showing real time now, which they are. So yeah, real time, we're across the board in the red. So again, something to realize, Dow's, the S&P. So TD Ameritrade was right the whole time. CNBC was wrong. But S&P is just barely in the red. So is the Dow and the NASDAQ, all red across the board. So that's what I've got for you this morning. Hopefully we'll see more of that bump up in the S&P. I don't see any major banners coming across. And then, of course, Monday doesn't have any real news that comes out. So we will see you all tomorrow morning, and have a good one.